So welcome everyone, and especially, I know we have several guests that are joining us today. Just so you know, we typically don't have any kind of bizarre things that happen. So this is just for you, the anomalies going on in the service. In any case, today, something that's come to mind to talk about, because I overheard somebody use the word consciousness. And it's an interesting thing. I've done talks in some of our DVD sets, you'll find, on being conscious and awake. Because there's just a few types of human beings. There's human beings that are clearly asleep, which would be, by the way, almost everybody on earth. So there are sleeping humans. They might look like they're awake, but they're just messed up. When Jesus said, "Forgive them, they know not what they do," what he was really saying was, forgive them, they're sleeping. Spiritually, they're sleeping. When people are rude, they're sleeping. When they're racist, they're sleeping. When they're sexist, they're sleeping. In other words, they are not aware of what they do because they're spiritually asleep. And so in this world, you have those who are sleeping, which is the majority. You have those who are waking up. Those are people you would think to be on the spiritual path, which is kind of nice. They're saying, I'd like to change something in my life. That's people that are waking. Then there is a third group, far the minority. I'm awake. You know, when they asked Buddha, are you the Messiah, the Christ? No, I'm just awake. And that's an accurate statement in so many different ways. Because he wasn't yet the completely Christed one, but he was awake. We've had human beings before and since Buddha that are awake. And it's partly a choice to say, I'm awake. But being awake, it sounds like, wow, that's any of us that are on the path. No. Waking is on the path. Awake means I went a whole nother level with this. And you can think, well, being awake is because I went to a drum circle up on the rocks, right? So that I'm awake now. No. You're just waking up that you were dreaming that you were on the rocks and drumming. Awake comes in a way some disturbing realities as well. Because being awake means you have to wake up and realize you are waking up and realizing everything else has been a dream. Now, if it's been a dream, then that means I'm going to have to practice forgiveness. Forgiving other people for what they did. Well, no, that was part of the dream. So now I'm forgiving people for what they didn't do. But I judged them for doing it. So when you're asleep, you're constantly judging everybody. When you're waking, you start to forgive everybody. But when you're awake, which you can't do without the final forgiveness, you have to do that with forgiving yourself. I reacted to this world. I judged this world, and so on and so on. So it boomerangs back to looking at ourselves. But this constant concept of conscious, I am conscious and awake. The opposite of conscious would be like the doctor saying, sorry, ma'am, he's no longer conscious. Right? What does that mean? Gone. He's not awake. He's not conscious. And this is disturbing. Can you imagine if the news did this? Beep, public service announcement. You are all asleep, having a nightmare as though you're alive and existing. Don't bother going to work because you don't really have a job. Don't pay taxes because you don't really have any debts. I mean, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't go over well. We have to first get used to, getting the human race to going, okay, fine, there's a Bigfoot and UFOs. They do exist. And then eventually the more scary things in the world, which is you're not really here. So it's a step at a time. But becoming conscious and awake is an incredible, in a sense, cathartic, but it's an incredible mind-expanding experience. But then there's a word, not just conscious and awake, because conscious is, I'm feeling kind of conscious today, right? There's the word consciousness. When you add ness to it, it becomes a noun. So when I say I'm seeking higher consciousness, it's actually not a thing separate from myself. I'm attaining higher consciousness means I am that thing. Or if I'm going to seek higher consciousness, it doesn't mean I'm going to seek a thing like a badge. It's seeking higher consciousness means I have to become this thing. So consciousness is different from conscious. Being awake. I am that thing, this consciousness. And when we say higher consciousness, there's no higher consciousness available in the universe, and there need not be one higher than the I am presence of God, or God consciousness, or we call it Christ consciousness. So it's very interesting. I had a client the other day that was struggling when I was talking about God, and they were having a challenge understanding what God is. I almost needed them to stay at the level, which is fine, but at the level of saying, okay, God's a person that lives up beyond the clouds. I mean, that's kind of where they had to stay, which is great because that's where they are right now. But that's not really the highest way to describe God. So what is God? Well, the easiest description would be a divine feeling. You know, people say, well, Michael, what is God? And when I meditate, when I pray, what am I, praying to? What's God? The simplest thing is it's a divine feeling. And how do I know that's the best way to describe God? Because I could say that to a 5-year-old and they would understand it. That's how to really, when you keep describing God in all kinds of complex ways, you steered way off. When you can say it to a 5-year-old and they get it, then you know you're closer to the truth. It's a feeling. So I could say to a child, try to imagine the best feeling you could ever have, and they would get it. You know how sometimes you're really, really happy? Yes, imagine that, but even more, and it never goes away. I mean, they're going to smile immediately. Right? And in the meantime, humans are going to still be talking. Well, the God, in quantum physics, and they just keep talking about it. It's a divine feeling. That's the short answer. But another more profound version of it's a divine feeling is this. It's a state of consciousness. It's divine consciousness. So God consciousness, heaven would be a place where there would be no other consciousness but God's, which totally makes sense. Heaven is where we would not have any will but the Father, Mother, God. When, Jesus is saying, when you see me, you see the Father. When he's talking about the kingdom of heaven is at hand, he's saying literally, the more you own who you are, the more heaven is here. It's not the more you develop a certain consciousness, the more you're going to earn the right to go somewhere. It's actually experienced as I wake up, I'm experiencing more of heaven. So it's an amazing thing. Heaven is right here, but I have to lift the veils to see it, is the way Buddha puts it. So right here, it's higher consciousness. It's not just, I read more books consciousness. That's a stage, but there's an allowing, which is quite beautiful if you think about it. There's an allowing. There's, when I seek nothing else, it's God's will. And when I choose nothing but God's will, I start to not earn the right to go to heaven, but in seeking no will but God's, I am actually experiencing heaven. So God's consciousness, and there's no other choice, is heaven. And we're made in God's image. So God is a divine consciousness, which again means you're not thinking any other consciousness. There's only this one consciousness, which is love, peace, joy, back to divine feelings. So when we have no other feelings, no other thoughts, no other doubts, no other preferences, but God's, then, at that point, when we have nothing else, then we're starting to experience heaven. And it's not a place we go. We start to experience heaven. And all else can fall away. When Jesus says, when you see me, you see the Father, what did he mean? It means when you see me as an example to you, here's the example I'm showing you. I seek nothing else. Only God. That's all we need to do. And then you start to experience all that you could possibly desire. So, divine consciousness is about, in a sense, remembering who we are. It's not like a study that we do per se. It's really a remembering. Remembering is partly cognitive, and you study and you learn and have insights. It's also partly prayer. It's also partly meditation. And it's also partly forgiveness. All these things add to us growing and remembering who we are. But instead of the little bits at a time, I find that the shorter path, if you could say there's such a thing, the shorter path would be let me just imagine that I'm already there and act accordingly. Instead of kind of clawing and getting my way back, I'm going to just go ahead and do my best to keep imagining that I'm already there. If I'm already in a divine feeling, what divine feeling might I choose? Let's say it's peace. Then start acting like you know peace. Start responding from a more peaceful place. And so what starts to happen, it's interesting. It seems like the world of illusion or things that are not of God's consciousness start to sort of peel off or fall away. Humans like to fight with these things. Humans keep looking for human solutions to human problems. Getting into God's consciousness means I'm actually like the eagle rising higher to where other birds and other things don't rise. They're not able to make that altitude. So I'm going to just seek first the kingdom and all else will fall away or fall into place. So I find it interesting when I think about consciousness. God is a consciousness. And when you try to, it's easier to go with divine feeling. Because when you say it's a consciousness, people start thinking brains. Like there's this giant brain. Honestly, people start using such linear visualizations. Oh, because conscious means you're a thinker. It's interesting. Consciousness, of true consciousness, is a knower, not a thinker. The state of God is a knowing what is. Man lives in fear of what might be. God lives in the reality. The truth of God is to know. So God just says, I just know the truth of what I am. How are you doing? I'm living in the fear of what I might be, or what I'm not. And this is constant. So what do you think really healing is? Well, my mother did this and my father, and I teachers that said things, and it hurts. I know. I got it. But on a deeper level, it's not really just what people have said and implied about you and, hurtfully and all that. It's if we know who we are, it has no effect. It's when we doubt who we are that these things can leak in, seep in, and become an effect in us. It leaches into our being. So our solution is to know who we are. Well, how do I get there? Which book? The most profoundly effective way is to ask the Mother. Ask the Holy Spirit to be your teacher and guide in this process. If you go to a teacher, the Holy Spirit is going to give you teachers and healers on earth to help facilitate it. But let her be the source. Go to her and ask her, I'm here, guide me. Show me the route to my remembrance. Show me who I really am. And this core of light starts to lock into place. And then when people say things, it's not like we just recover more quickly, which is true. It's that as comments and thoughts and opinions and whatever of people start moving towards us, they can't penetrate the light. The truth of who I am shines so brightly, it just seems to dissipate on its way in, like sunshine eventually dissipating a dark cloud. This presence just shines. Now, this isn't a perfect world. There's still moments where we feel, the hits from people or from life's events. We could say, oh man, I feel so centered in God. Somebody dies and it's hard to handle. Man, I'm just one with God. Then you lose your job. And how could this be happening? What's going on? Well, because we're in a world that seems, and that's the operative word, the word seems to have power, and it has not, which is what we're achieving in our spiritual work. When you sit and evaluate how you're doing with your spiritual work, you pray, you meditate, you do yoga, and you eat granola, I don't care. Whatever you think makes you holy, great, prove it. When life's challenges come in, do you handle them differently? If the answer is anything but yes, it isn't working for you. Oh, I got to read more labels. No, it's not working. It's not working. You should try something else. Trying something to help you awaken to where you go. I'm so clear about who I am. These things don't have the same effect. And still, there will be days when you're weaker than others. But generally, can you say, I'm getting it? It should not be just a cognitive thing. I'm learning information. You could say, I'm into sacred geometry. Great. And How has that helped you with your relations? Oh, I don't have relations, and if you got lots of restraining orders out on you, something's not right. Something's probably not right. I don't want to assume, but, something's probably not right. So are you recovering more quickly? Are you recognizing, if you have friends, are they healthy friends? If you have no friends, are you still feeling healthy? That's good. When you can just say, whichever is happening out here, there's still this beautiful center. I still feel somewhat immune to the world. And that's kind of nice. If we're still reacting the same as we've always reacted, something might be missing. So what are you seeking? I'm seeking higher consciousness. You're still thinking it's an achievement. You're seeking to become a higher consciousness. That's different. And a lot of people don't realize that difference. And even if they think they know that there is a difference, they won't know what it is or how to achieve it or apply it. I'm seeking to become a higher consciousness. What higher consciousness are you seeking to become? Oh, wise? Is that it? How about the I am presence of God? That sounds like, wow, that's way out there. It isn't. If the kingdom of heaven is here at hand, Jesus, Buddha, everybody else says it. If the kingdom of heaven is here, and the kingdom of heaven is God's consciousness, and you're made in God's image, you actually have that. And if you're not feeling like you have it, it's because you're not choosing it yet. You're still allowing other opinions or choices to be there. Like I'm choosing between how much to wake up today. It has to be where you want nothing more than this particular thing. And to me, it's very, it's a very interesting quandary because we're sometimes on earth going, yeah, but if I just totally accept this, then what? What does that look like on earth? Do I still call my children? Do I still pay bills? Because you start getting so blissed out. Well, before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. And after enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. So there's going to be this, bills, wait. Oh, angels call to you, the clouds part, and you're like, God, there's this presence of God. Everything feels so great. I don't have any worries. I don't think I'll pay bills or do anything. I don't have to eat or drink, And something's going to pull the rug out from under you to humble you and get back to, wait a minute. I was doing all that, then it all crashed, tempting me to go back to the doing world. And instead, oh, I get it. For me, it happened when I went through the dark night of the soul, one of the few times I've gone through it, where, man, I just felt so, oh my God, spiritual and awake, and everything just feels great. And then everything falls apart because you go with the dark night of the soul. And you thought, well, now that I feel so spiritual and alive, nothing could go wrong, right? Don't even ask. So the rug gets pulled out, you collapse. And I'm like going, but wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And then, oh, it does. The world is an illusion. So the dark night's teaching me, oh my God, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to read books. We don't have to meditate. We don't have to do anything because I get it now. I'm becoming spiritual. Not the doing spiritual. Oh my God. Now I sit going, oh, wow, there's nothing to do. I just was blissing out in this, wow. Are we good, God? Yeah, we're good. Wow. Check in with God, meditate. I just feel so wonderful. What could go wrong? Well, if you've already gone through the dark night, now things won't go wrong. You're now in a blissful state. However, there's this point where the active part of God says, how have you been? Well, I've been just basking in the mother, the Holy Spirit of God. She's been holding me and saying, wow, you've done a great job, honey, on earth. Thank you, mother, thank you. And you've done such a wonderful experience. Wow, you're just a great example to others. Thank you, mother. Now rest because you deserve rest. Oh, I knew it. Oh, thank you. And you're just being held in the mother. And at some point, the door opens and the father aspect of God steps in. Is he done? Just about. Just about. Yeah, feeling all integrated. Oh, yeah, man, I feel so spiritual and divine. Okay, because your father wants to talk to you. What? And the father says, hi. Hi, I'm glad you rested in the mother. This is the next initiation. This is when your cup runneth over. Because when your cup reaches the mother, you get to rest in divine consciousness. But the Father then says, now go back. I have things for you to do. No, wait a minute. I was just resting in the mother. Don't I get to just stay there forever? No. Because there's still other people that need what you just achieved. You're kidding. Why don't we just forget them? Flood the earth again. Let me just be with you and we're all good. And the Father aspect of God says, I know, I hear this all the time, but no, you got to go back. So the microcosmic orbit that rises also descends again back down to the root center. Day-to-day stuff. And it's kind of a shocker. So there's this part of God that says, now, you remember the bills that became an illusion? Remember that tarot cards and astrology and all the things you were into? Yes. And you learned that none of it's real? Yes. Well, now you need to do them again. So get out your cards, do your charts, go to school, pay your bills, do those things that you learned are worthless illusions. But the difference is, before you did them believing in them, having power over you. Now you're going to do them just to be able to show up on earth. Because you got to be here. There are still people I need you to talk to. And if you say, I'm so one with God, I will not eat or drink again, then soon, days later, you're dead, and now how are you going to help anybody? I need you to drink some water once in a while. I need you to take your body out for a walk once in a while. See, so here we are out of the world, and yet we're asked to come back to the world. So even in our sublime, which I could even say, sublime kind of arrogance, wow, I reached enlightenment. The Bodhisattva is the greatest because they go, I get it, and yet let me play the game. Instead of I get it, now I'll just bask in the oneness of love and light, whatever. They still say, okay, but it looks like there's still stuff that needs done. So generally speaking, that's the great path of spirit for us. We think we're trying to grow and ascend and blast out like a firework out the top of our head and look like some fountain fireworks, spiritual and all that. But the real thing, the real work comes in, wow, got it. Now, what would you have me do? You still got to step up. You're a music teacher at school. It changes how you do everything. You're a mom, dad, sibling. It changes how you do everything. I've gotten a lot of emails and messages this week about people saying, God, how to deal with people, and once you start getting enlightened, do you convert people? Do you talk to people? No. You're supposed to become the difference. That's how you speak to them. You shouldn't convert people. You shouldn't try to push people into new beliefs. There's this consciousness that I've learned about, and wow, guess what? They're still sleeping. They're not even in the waking category, let alone ready for awake. So just be on this third dimensional level, be the difference you'd like to see in the world. It's not always easy, especially those closest to you at work or with family. It's not always easy to say, well, I'm going to center into this and, just be this difference. It's not always easy because, the people that know you the most are going to kind of push and pull on you. You were from a family that smokes and drinks and cusses and does whatever, and all of a sudden you kind of woke up. They don't go, okay, let's all change the way we do things when they're around. That's not usually how they do it. Once in a blue moon, you'll have a group of people that might go, out of respect for the changes we've seen in you. You see, but most of the time, it's almost rude and condescending because you've woken up and you choose not to do certain things. Why do you think they would attack you or be rude? Because you're mirroring where they would like to be and they're not. You're also mirroring what they're afraid to be. They might look like they're just being rude, and they are being rude, but you're mirroring something to them. And it's something that they know deep down, I want to go there too. I love those kinds of examples of people. I think that I can gain as much from individuals who are standing up to the world like that, as much as people that stand up like this at a podium. People that just did it in their own little walks of life. I love hearing that. People, members of rock bands. There was the band The Animals. Several hits, but the band The Animals, if you go and research, in fact, there's a video of them doing House of the Rising Sun. And I remember seeing this once, And there were some odd comments because in the scene, there are probably more than one video of this, but the one they actually made for the song. The band stands there kind of in a row, facing the camera, and then during the song, after the first verse, they all start walking one after another, and the camera sort of follows them. And they're just walking in a big circle. Well, what's funny about it is it gets towards the last verse, they pause, and then during the keyboard solo, then they start walking again. And when they do, the keyboard player's like, people are commenting on the video like, what's with that dude? The other guys are like, there is a house in New Orleans, and the other guys, they're all serious looking. And this guy's like, oh my God, I'm in a rock video. Like, he's just and you know what happened to all these people? They all went into drugs and alcohol, except that dude, he became a Buddhist. It was already there. You get what I'm saying? Like, he was already like, man, there's so much goodness. I can feel it. And to me, that's a consciousness. And it's funny because you have to put those pieces together because you don't know. Is he just nervous? Like, because it looks really out of place. All the other band members are doing real serious. And this guy just looks, dude, stop smiling. You're not fitting in very well with the band. Imagine a band, heavy metalers, doing like, their poses for their album covers, and all their kind of, wow, we're just rocks. And imagine one just kind of, it wouldn't fit. My point, though, it's consciousness. There's something in us that is made in the image of God, and God is divine consciousness. It's an identity, not just an event. It's a consciousness. I am. Wow. It's not I talk it and I think it I am this presence. Everybody is, even if their behaviors aren't matching. I am this. So we don't have to keep saying, God, give me, give me, give me. I am. I just have to get out of the way and allow this presence to be. Very cool. Very beautiful. Now, this is what Jesus has tried to get so often to get across. When you see me, you see the Father, Mother, God. I have no will but God's. The concepts of as above, so below. That which God is, I am. And when I'm not acting like it, it's because I forgot who I am today. So then what's the solution? Remembrance. The solution to amnesia is memory. So remember. How? Well, first and foremost, the quickest technique, besides choosing it, is forgiveness. I slipped, let me come back. I slipped because this person, then forgive them. I slipped because I was mad at that person, forgive yourself. And then these supernatural things happen where suddenly we're having this like, wow, wait, 10 minutes ago, I was really afraid or upset. I don't know what happened, but I feel different. It's called a miracle. And it's only called a miracle because we've forgotten that just by shifting our mind, by choosing to remember, something supernatural can happen. Supernatural means to be beyond that which is natural. But it's not supernatural, it is natural. We call it supernatural because we distance ourselves from the ability to make a single choice with our will behind it, and then poof, we're back into the divine consciousness. So, we have to understand that ultimately there's the knowingness of God. Picture the chakras, 4 in the torso, 3 up here. The I am presence is I know. I absolutely know. And that's what God does. So God, if you think, what is God? How is God different from mankind, people? It's very simple. I know and only know the truth of who I am. Great. What about people? People are not, I know who I am. People go, I think I know. That is to say, I kind of believe. Well, let me think about it. Oh, God. Ugh. By the time you reach the root chakra of material world, it's like things just don't look well. Everything's like sick. And it's like a plant you put in the ground and don't water it. It's just doing this. We call that financial issues and health issues and depression. The plant is falling apart. Water it with what? The knowingness of God. So continue believing. This concept of I can choose to believe. This is it. Here I know. There's no options. But I'm not in the knowingness of God anymore. I started believing I could be something less than divine. You see the chakras of that? I know, I don't. Now I merely believe. Some days my beliefs are on level, they're on par, and some days they're not. If they're not aligned with the knowingness of God, my beliefs will start to nurture ill thinking, ill emotions, and ill experiences. So humans have ill experiences, root chakra, and try to fix them with root chakra material kinds of things. God, I feel really out of center today. What did they say again? Oh yeah, that's right, omega complex. You try to fix it with material things. And the best you're going to do is give a little bit of a little pizzazz added to your diet or something external, but it won't last. You can go and do coffee. Started my day really down. You need God. You need to plug in. No, what I need is coffee. So you have your coffee. I've never had coffee in my life. And yet I don't feel, I don't know how to start my day without coffee. People do this coffee thing, and no offense, that's great for you. But they do this coffee thing, but then after a coffee, they seem to start losing that, and they need another one at some point. How come that's not called addiction? They need to have 12 steps from coffee meetings. People have to consider this. If you need it that badly, you should rethink it. So the knowingness of God can become ill beliefs that I'm doubting and on down the scale to where I see it manifested in my life. Or I choose to let my beliefs reflect the truth of God. Even if I own today, I'm having doubts, if I give those to the Holy Spirit, they get transformed. Bring everything to God doesn't mean stuff. God, humans, I heard the Lord say, bring everything to me. So I grabbed one of my animals and sacrificed it on an altar. How could that have gone off any further? Other than if it were your spouse, honey, listen, I know this marriage has been really great, but I heard the Lord speak to me and I need to sacrifice someone and it's you. So that would be a little twisted, but you're not supposed to be sacrificing things. When God said, give me something on the altar, where do you think the altar is? Well, it's this building over here. It's this table in our building. Your altar is in your heart. Well, how do I bring a thing and sacrifice it on the altar of my heart? Because it's not a thing. Sacrifice your beliefs. Today, I was doubting love. I was doubting my ability to forgive. I was doubting my faith. Bring that to the altar. Put it on the altar. Meaning, own it. But this knowingness of God is one thing. That's just a perfect knowingness. That's the consciousness of God. How do I get that down here? Well, it's not that complicated, but people don't choose it. I take it from the knowingness of God into my beliefs. Now, my beliefs will feed my thinking, my thoughts, which will feed my emotions, which will feed my material life. But thinking is one of the primary tools of my beliefs. I need to get my beliefs on task for sure. My beliefs. I choose to believe as God believes. It's called the faith. I just know that God is, even if I don't see it. Stop believing and putting faith in things you see with your eyes. Because this world is going to show you starvations, deprivations, sickness. If you use your senses, like many mystics have said, if you use your senses to evaluate your life, you're in trouble because they'll always come back wanting. Because you're using senses that aren't real, but you're using senses that are made up from the fallen self. How can they give you good reports? So we say, I get it. That's partly what it meant by faith in things unseen. I need to have faith in the thing I don't see yet, which is my wholeness. Don't pray for sickness to go. Pray to know your wholeness. Don't pray for money. Pray to know your abundance. Pray to know the divine feelings that God is, that I am, that we are. Even if I don't see it, if I'm doubting, put it to the altar. Now, thinking, positive thinking and thinking is one of the greatest tools of your heart. Your heart is about beliefs. but let the mind practice positive thoughts. So thinking is not your way out, but it's a tool of your belief systems. Then your thinking also has a powerful tool called words. Our job is to get our words to match our bright thinking, which should be matching our bright beliefs, which should be matching the knowingness of God. That's the ticket. I know, I believe, I think, I feel, I am. I'm experiencing it right in my day-to-day life. Humans use their words to talk about what they don't have constantly. Now, even if you say, well, I'm sick, how is that praying for what I don't have? You don't have health. Humans talk and talk from a fallen soul. And so it betrays them. Their words, anything that's like not of the light of God, means something's not right in here. So humans will talk about what they don't have. This is about words right now. What you don't have. And the words should be giving thanks for what you do have. And start with that. Here's what I don't have. Wait, let me start switching to what I do have. It's an amazing thing. Because you can even be sitting in a stupor, kind of a depression, talking about what you don't have. If you start practicing gratitude with your words instead, you'll actually shift your energy. You'll notice kind of a bit of an upliftment. It's a healing, but it's not the complete cure. Because it's still trying to cure things, watch this, from down here, trying to fix them to make you feel better. If you feel better, you'll be able to fix those things quickly versus making yourself say positive words to make yourself feel better here. So I'll explain a little more on that just briefly. I'm going to get my words to get in alignment with my thoughts. But if my thoughts are not in alignment, my words aren't going to do so well. Is that making sense? My words are always betraying. So you have these people out in the world, like life coaches, which is a great thing to do for people, life coaches and fairy godmothers that say, you must believe, honey. If only you would believe. You know, you just have to believe. No, wait. This is the tricky part. Listen, you already believe. When you say something dark and negative, it's telling us what you already believe. Believing is not just, you need to believe in positive things. I'm telling you what you speak is already telling us what you do believe. And if it's like, oh man, you know, negatives and negatives. And it's easy to have negatives in this world that barrages us with negatives, of course. But in the knowingness of God, I'm calling on something that's beyond what my senses tell me about this world. My words already tell me what I believe. You're telling me that my life would change if I could only say better things. You're telling me that if only I believe. I already believe, and that's the problem. I believe that I'm separate from God. I believe that I'm a sinful person. I believe that I'm unworthy, or whatever it is. I believe I'm aging. I believe I'm unattractive. Those beliefs are already in my words. You know, somebody might say to you, hey, I would like to give you a gift. Oh, no, that's okay. Sometimes, you know, this is a test for you to receive. And don't get me wrong. You know, I tell folks, just don't ever give me gifts. I don't want gifts of any kind. And it's not from that same place where I'm not accepting, because I can accept. But it's, you know, it's just easier this way. So when someone's going to extend a gift to you and you have a bill you can't pay and they pay it for you, it's wonderful. But there's part of me that doesn't believe I'm worthy, and it's already sabotaging my life. By saying thank you, you're welcoming in that shift that says, maybe I am worthy. See, it's not just stuff people are giving you. It's not just things of the external world. Major shifts and major lessons can come by seeing these things from a higher place. In fact, consciousness allows us to see things from a very different place. I'm not holding a fear-based consciousness now. I'm rising to higher consciousness, the knowingness of God. So in my divine self, I know. In my heart, I believe. My words are betraying my beliefs. That's it. So it's not like I need to change, you know, and just coach myself into believing. You already believe, and that's what people are afraid of owning. If you understand that your external life is a statement of your beliefs, a huge wave of the feeling called responsibility is going to come rushing in, and you're going to feel terrible. I mean, how are you going to feel good about that? If the world mirrors my beliefs and there's war and devastation here and there, that doesn't feel very good. But it will once you realize the law is both-sided. It's not just the negatives I see. I can also make a change with positives. So I'm going to not just try to get the world to be fixed down on the material level. I'm going to choose my beliefs to be different. How? Again, go to the mother. How would you have me see this? Don't change my addictions, change my beliefs about addictions. Don't change my relationships and switch people around. Change my beliefs about them. And all of a sudden, it's like veils get lifted and there's this glory in everyone and in everything. It's like, how could I ever have thought that I'm an unlovable person? How could I have ever thought that the world was nothing but terrible? The world is filled with Christed beings that forgot who they are. And because they forgot who they are, they're in pain. And because they're in pain, they scream a lot. Because they're in pain. It changes. It's like suddenly you become, imagine you're channeling the universal spiritual counselor. So now all of a sudden, all these people that you were entangled with and challenged with, all of a sudden you realize are your clients. They're all in pain, and I need to see them differently. I need to see them as people that are crying out in pain, and I have to ask myself, how can I help? And if I run into something that I'm just not able to work on enough, reach to another counselor like counselors are supposed to and say, I'm struggling with a client of mine, and I'm not sure how to get through to them. Work with other sponsors and so forth. I mean, it's a really different way to see the world, but it's the right way to see it for now. The world is filled with Christs who have forgotten who they are. They've wrapped around themselves a veil and then started creating masks that are very dark. Masks that are sort of fake identities. How can I help them? What do you think helping them means? Well, I need to bring them back to that consciousness. What consciousness? The divine one. How are you going to help them do it if you're not doing it? Well, how do I do it then? As we just said. See them as clients that need worked with compassionately, forgivingly, and you'll find, this works for me, I know that. In all my years, I have to say, I feel really good spiritually. I have a great level of higher consciousness. That feels really good. But I swear to you, I probably received far, far more of my awarenesses and levels of enlightenment by working with people than I ever did reading a book. That's, for me. And I think that's true for everybody. Because one only appeals to our head. The other appeals to our heart. Something profound happens when you live this stuff. So I'm certain that most of what I know, experience, teach, whatever, is from my relationship with the all, including all of us. I can see patterns, I can see things, it's like Spirit has provided the ability to say, when I'm counseling, I never went off to some school and studied some academic version of counseling, and yet I know everything. I totally understand where people are coming from. When people say, can I talk to you about this? It already starts downloading what you're doing, what's going on, and what the solution is. This is kind of a funny thing, but my middle daughter reached out to me the other day, and she said, and she's really brilliant. I say middle daughter, so it sounds like she's 10 or something. She's 35, 40, whatever it is. And she is. She's 30 something. So she reaches out to me and she says, I'm finishing this book that I'm writing on the archetypes of people. Kind of like your Enneagram, right? And astrology and all the different types of groups we have to study. So she's doing like these archetypes in spiritual archetypes. So they're not just people archetypes, but people on the path. The 9 types of archetypes you're going to enter or experience. It could be like the mystic or it'd be the occultist, but she's got this full study. It's an amazing thing. Very, very cool, very detailed. So she calls and says, so I got this and, I just wanted your feedback. So what do you think? Here are the names of the archetypes and whatever. And I go, well, you're missing 3. Here they are. Boom, boom, boom. She goes, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do it. I spent years finding 9, and in 10 seconds you named 3. She goes, I told Mom, I'm hesitating to tell him because she goes, I wanted to be proud of coming up with this myself. I said, oh, then you shouldn't have asked, But what I mean by this, guys, is anything you need to know is knowable. Anything. So as soon as she said 9, I go, no, there's 12. It's not because I've read that there's 12. I go, no, what about this one? And oh my God, that's brilliant. Oh my God. And it's still hers. It doesn't take away from her. No different than someone writing a beautiful song and there's a line that someone else contributes to. It's still that person's song. And we're on this earth and we can see things differently. We can know anything we choose to know. You might be sitting here going, no, not me. I barely know my work and my line of work is very narrow. That tells you exactly where your beliefs are. There's something that can happen if we just allow and recognize all I have to do is take my mind from this to this. I can know anything. Not kind of. I can know anything. Why? Because I am everything. So Edgar Cayce channeled beautifully the Akashic Records. You are the Akashic Records. You don't have to just channel them, which is an incredibly amazing thing that he pulled off. But all the records are in all of us. The all is in all. And the all is in the all. So we can know anything. And yet human beings, they tinker around having lost so much faith in themselves. In closing, everything is about consciousness. And if you think you know very little, you're saying this concept of everything is consciousness isn't true, or that mine is like this. Truly believe. Ask, believe, and receive doesn't just mean stuff. What about consciousness? Ask and believe that you are made in God's image and allow this new consciousness to come through and just try it. Those are mastery techniques, but just try it. Put it out there. Try and fill in a line. We were talking about the animals in the House of the Rising Sun and all that. That was a bizarre song that they think was rooted in Britain. Like some old tavern kind of thing, folk song people would sing. Nobody knows the roots of it. And even though it mentions New Orleans, that's because he added that to the song. There was this pieces of songs. And every time he'd say, every time we'd go to a pub or listen to a musician on the street sing it, they would add their own words. It was like it was an archetype waiting, a template waiting. So Eric Burden, the lead, I guess the singer or whatever of the band, he just said, I'm going to fill it in. And he filled it in with feeling about, originally the song was thought to be about a prostitute who sang, I ended up being a prostitute, working in this brothel, and look what this world has done to me. It's a very painful song. So it was about a girl, not a boy. But he changed it to fit him singing it. But what I love about it is this is an archetype in our consciousness. I started off like this. Mothers, don't let your children do what I have done. And when he's talking brothel, it's planet Earth. Don't let this world take you. Don't let it take you and make you forget who you are. Right? And he puts these words to it, and it becomes most people know of that song and how it's sung. So heartfelt, so much emotion behind it, because it's a statement of the darkness we felt coming to this earth plane. And don't let your children do what I have done. Don't let yourselves fall, as he puts it. Eric Burden, he says it's addiction. Addiction and loss and hurt of any kind. He said, I remember once him saying way back how he realized how disgusted he was by this whole thing that the damage people live with. So the song might sound in a sense like a negative, but it's a negative that becomes a realization to open up a positive. Each of us has become that type of character. Maybe not in the brothel, etc. Maybe you are, maybe you have, but that's not the point. It's a metaphor. It's the smoking, the drinking, the hating, the judging. It's the thinking I can only know this much about life. We can know anything. Just realizing, God, my consciousness is at this point, mine being any of us, my consciousness is getting to this point where I realize that I'm connected with everything. And everything is in the heart of God ultimately. When we peel the layers, it all comes back to the consciousness of God. So I'm going to start living to know the truth of God instead of fearing the truth of man. Mankind does not live by truth. They live by facts. And the facts are completely screwed up. None of the facts are true. I mean, what a weird way to live. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start living by, let's see, where we have this document, a political document or whatever. And, okay, yeah, I see. We're going to start living by facts, and here are the facts. None of them are accurate, but we're going to start living by those. That doesn't sound sane at all. So God says, well, you can try to live by facts that are illusions, or you can live by truth of who you are. I'm here when you call on me to teach you the latter. And we just forget that it's that simple. Just ask. This is not something you earn. It's something we are. So we're asking for something that is natural and organic. Help me to know the I am presence, your I am presence. Help me to know the consciousness of God. And when you say, let the kingdom of, heaven be on earth, it's exactly what it can be. Earth can reflect the consciousness of God. It won't be completely the consciousness of God because the consciousness of God cannot be known or experienced at any form of limitation. And earth is a form of limitation. But you sure as heck can have a happy dream. Still, it's a dream, but a happy dream. And eventually you and I are going to even bid farewell to the happy dream because it's still a dream, and we won't settle even for that. We want to go all the way back to the complete knowing. Please take a few centering breaths. Just take a moment to reflect on what we've covered. What made sense? What you needed to hear? All the world's a stage and we each play our part. I'm playing a part by just chatting about this. But I'm just a reflection. So what did you hear that made sense to you that you needed? It's still you. It's you saying it to yourself. You could be in the company of angels or demons and they're still parts of yourself. Why did you create either one? Why are they there? Which one do you want to listen to? One of the most important things is simply alignment. The consciousness of God being chosen in my beliefs, my thinking, my emotions, and my experience words. Choosing nothing outside of that love. Then I can say I am as God created me. Then I can say I am the presence of God. I am the Christ on earth. In the meantime, forgiving myself when I don't do it. When I slip, when I judge. Anytime we're experiencing thoughts or external circumstances that don't feel like a divine feeling, peace, love, joy, we can choose again. This came from an unholy belief that I or one of my brothers and sisters are less than God created us to be. I surrender it to you, Holy Spirit, and ask to see it replaced with a greater reality, your reality. Surrender it, let it be replaced. Surrender it, let it be replaced. Take a moment right now and just reflect. Think of anything going on in your life currently. You can just let it torment you, a challenging circumstance in your life. You can let it torment you. It could be minor or major. You can let it torment you. That's one route. You can pray and beg God to fix it. That's another route. You can also say, what if I am? And try it. What if I am in the consciousness of God? What if God created me in its image And all the power that God has and is, I am. Picture yourself standing or sitting, facing your circumstances, and see it as though they're completely powerless against the I am presence that you are. Take just a half a minute to see that. Think about the time you've spent worrying or speaking words related to that problem. Just think about that. And how silly that would seem if you're in your light. Think about how much time you've spent talking about and or thinking about those circumstances. And every time you have, every second spent there was spent at the altar feeding it. Feeding that beast. So what if, instead of speaking about this situation, thinking and fearing, obsessing, what if I am as God created me? What if I know this to be true, I believe this to be true, think this to be true, feel this to be true? It is true. What power do these other things have? And just stand in conviction that this is the truth of God. Allow yourself to see it like it's really kind of silly that I thought this had power over me. So you have two voices, the human voice, the fearful voice that is speaking the facts of this world, that there's a challenge, that there's something against you. And then there's the other voice, the truth of God, that speaks who you are and says, why don't you start speaking the truth of who you are into your challenge? Just shine light to it to where it dissipates. Those are the two options for all of us. Think it, fear it, speak it negatively, or bring the presence of God and faith words. The truth of God in the situation is what? And look at the difference of how you'll respond to things. I call in the presence of God, and the presence of God is called perfect love. Perfect love casts out fear in all its manifestations. When I call in the perfect presence of God, all else dissipates. I just need now to choose it perfectly, consistently, knowing that there is nothing else to choose. No other options but God and God's love. A few centering breaths of gratitude for the shift. So it is. Thank you all very much. A couple of centering breaths. Has this made good sense to you all? Please, the concept, the consciousness of God. And I'm made in that image. When I started, this person, it was almost like I had to convince them God's a person in the sky. That's the limit of where they could go. God is a consciousness, divine feeling, consciousness. And I'm made in that consciousness. So all that God is, I am. Now think about this. So if you think that a phone bill destroyed your day, deep down you know you're made in God's image. Do you realize that you're saying that that's how little you think of God as well? I know God's kind of grand, but this phone bill, wow. When you think something has power over you, you're affirming God's flawed. And it isn't. I'm flawed, but I'm not made flawed. I decided to pretend that I'm flawed, and I'm choosing to surrender that. Then I'm allowed to replace it with something new. How great to know the truth of God. Right? That's the good news of the Lord. Makes you want to dance. Oh my God, this is great. Right? It's kind of cool. You know, imagine. I mean, I know that doesn't work very well in the three-dimensional world, but how cool is that? You know, you go dancing into a courtroom. Guess what? I just realized it's all an illusion. I won't need to pay the bill, the speeding ticket now. You know, besides, I was only speeding because I was so high on God. I'm just feeling so alive. You know, it doesn't go over well in this world. But if we come from that authentic place and it's all woven into every part of the fabric of our being, people do see, wow, there's something about that person. And that's all the difference we need to be making. Just people will sense there's something beautiful about you. And it shouldn't be in your preaching to them about how they should be. It's more like your experience. Please stand for a closing song. Prayer, affirmation. We very much appreciate everybody's presence. Please remember, when we're done here, the bookstore is open. The outside patio, you can relax out in the shade, or the front patio, whatever you'd like to do. You can sign up for crystal bed sessions. That's fine too. But we're going to have our chaplain prayer circle. So, within a few minutes after we're done, you can chat and all that in here, but gradually move it outside to where we can do the prayer work that we're going to do in here, all right? Thank you. Please, in your hearts, soaking in gratitude. Soaking in how nice to have spiritual family. It's a breath of fresh air. A lot of people haven't yet found a sense of spiritual family. They're still fighting with human family or doing without any family. So let's, in our hearts, include everyone here so that they understand, I am your spiritual family. You can count on me to be that in consciousness. From all around the world. Affirming for us all that the light of God surrounds us.
We are the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We are the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We are the power of God.
And the presence of God watches over us.
We are the presence of God.
Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Peace be with all of you. God bless you. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Thanks online, guys. Lots of love to you all. Bye-bye.